Welcome, campaigners. Glad to have you back here on Campaign Terrain. It's been a kind of strange week. That's okay. I think we're going to get through it. This week, we're turning the trunks we made last week into lush, dense vegetation for this week. We're going to cover all these trees in foliage and flock, get them looking game ready. So, join us after the bump. Thanks for coming. Okay, quick recap of where we were from last week, and then I'll tell you what we need for this week. Last week we got as far as finishing this tree up. I hadn't painted it yet. I got the 45-degree angles for the branches, I got the one in the center, and pretty good to go on that. In the last week, I finished up another one, so we have two to work with today, and hit them with some brown paint. I hit these with 3 or 4 different colors of browns, so that I get sort of a mottled texture. It doesn't show up on camera, but there's examples where this is darker and this is lighter. So it really doesn't matter. All you're going for is brown like a tree. We're not doing the base. I'll cover it quickly at the end, but you know how to flock. So most of the roots will get covered up. So you're just going for a general tree color. So whatever brown works for you. So, once we've got our trees from last week, or our trunks from last week ready, and we've got them all browned up, here's what you're going to need for this week. Fiber fill. This was swiped out of an old chair that was going to the curb, so this is completely free. We're going to need some green paint to turn the fiber fill into, well, green fiber fill. So that's how I do it. It's with this and the paint and the being patient, letting it take the time it needs to dry off, which is only a few minutes anyway. It's much cheaper to do this than get the green fiber fill that's designed for tree foliage. There is green fiber fill designed for that, but I found that this is much less expensive. First off, my fiber fill is free, and the paint's like $3, and I can do, dozens of trees. So we're also going to need some green flock, which is the same stuff I've done 100 different projects with. It's my multicolor. I don't have it here on the table, but you'll see it in a minute. And we coat the outside of the tree with it. You'll notice that the inside of this tree is done with the dark green fiber fill. You could also paint this brown, I suppose. And then the outside is done with flock that happens to be lighter than that. So that, and you're going to need some glue to put the flock to put the fiber fill onto the branches. So, as always, I am using hot glue. And you're going to need some glue to hold the flock to the outside of the tree. That can be a spray adhesive. That can be straight up PVA if you want to put it on there, though I find that this tends to clump and you have to go around a lot with that. You can also use the diluted PVA sprayed down. That's what I actually used on this tree, and it's what I'm going to use again because, well, COVID, and I don't really want to go out and buy more spray. So that's it. You're going to need fiber fill, green paint, block for the outside, glue to hold it on, and glue to hold the fiber fill to the tree. That's really it. So one more jump and then we'll start right in on putting the foliage on. So to get this nice and green, I'm not going to do it here. I've already done it and I'm in an enclosed space and it's rainy out and etc. But all I do is I take the fiber fill, I take a generous portion. You can tear it in layers if you want it thinner. I typically do. You can lay that out, spread it out if you want, and then hit it with the rattle can. Now when you do this, you're going to want to hit it from 3 or 4 sides because you'll keep finding white spots. Then eventually, once it's dry, you're going to flip it over and do the same thing again. You can go over 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times if you want to get it greener. Most of that's going to be hidden under the flock. Plus, at the end, once you've got it on the tree, if you find you're missing a white spot, you can come back and hit that with green. For example, I've still got a somewhat lighter spot here. Depending on how I attach it to the tree, I probably won't even hit that again. I'll just glue it on the inside or something. More of the same in here. So spread it out, hit it with the rattle can from a couple directions, wait for it to dry, flip it over, hit it from the rattle can from a few directions, let it dry, and you come out with this. Now this is, you can see, much less prone to being pulled apart like the other, but it's still able to be, but it'll stay clumped up in little balls when we do it, which is perfect because that's what we're wanting. So let's go ahead and do that. This is the one I did last week, and first off, I don't know if you can see those, but there's little strands and such sticking out on these. You don't have to bother cutting those off because they're going to be covered up in foliage here in just a moment. So you can cut those off if you want, but I'm not. So I'm just going to take and tear a bunch of these. Ooh, wow, okay. I'm going to go tear a bunch of these off and I'll be right back. Okay, tore those into small pieces. I'm going to grab my flock for later and my flock catcher so I can retrieve the flock. You'll see that in a moment. Alright, and got this little extra light over here, so I hope this is better. So, this is, I cannot even describe how simple this is. You just randomly pick one of your little blobs. Now, they're going to have some little ends and pieces sticking out. I just tuck those in. You don't have to cut them off or anything. And I'm going to make a little blob of foliage. I'm going to put some hot glue in various places. I find it easier to start from the center and work out because that way I don't end up being in my own way. You can also start on one side of the tree and work the other way, like work straight across so that you're never in your way. But you literally take the little blob and just attach it to the hot glue, mush in hard enough to catch, done. We're going to do that at least 4 more times to cover the other branches. And then I may stick some other pieces in between them. So let me cover the branches and I'll be back and we'll see if we need more. Okay, just to show you, this tree is so flexible that what I'm doing is actually holding the other branches out of the way while I put some glue on them. And I have noticed these are looking a little bare, so I've been sort of doubling up. So I've got a lot of glue on the one side here. Take my clump, put it on the one side, then flip it over, put glue on the other side, and put my next clump on there. That makes it a little bushier and fuller. You see I did not do that here. So what I'm going to do is take a fairly decent sized little clump here. I guess I should say fairly decent sized larger clump here. And in the bare spot, add a little bit of glue, get rid of those strings, and attach that clump to that circle of glue I just added. And now I'm liking the way this tree is looking. So this tree is looking full and ready to go. I don't know how well you can see that. It's sort of a dark green on dark green on dark green there. But I may add one more little clump. Nope, I think I'm going to leave it. Organic and natural looking is a good way to go. So you see I still have a little bit of a lighter spot in here and here. Those aren't going to matter. The flock is going to cover this up. Let me move my hot gun out of the way. Let me get a couple other things out of my way, get my flock catcher down, and then we'll move on to flocking. Alright, I apologize if my white flock catcher washes out this picture, and that makes the tree even harder to see. Okay, I have sprayed this with a little bit of water, just to sort of weten it up. This is just my preferred method. There's 20 or 30 ways you can attach flock here. Then I take my thinned out soap. This is probably thinned out. There is a tiny bit of soap in here. I didn't mean to say soap, I meant to say glue. About 30% glue, 70% water, tiny touch of soap in here to make it flow better. Oops. There we go. And then douse about a third of the tree. Probably shouldn't have done that over my board, but that's alright. Actually, I need to wipe off my board. I make mistakes, so you don't have to. Okay, so I got about a third of that soap, I said soap again, glued up. And then I have a sort of shaker cap, but you could also sprinkle this with your fingers or through a sieve, however you want to do it. But essentially, we're delivering the flock to the glue. And you don't have to be delicate or graceful with this. You really do want this sort of everywhere. So everywhere that you put glue, hit it with the flock. And you can kind of see where we're going with that. I'm going to hit the rest of this tree, then I'll be back. Okay, I've hit this with glue from essentially 360, 360. I've gotten up underneath, I've gotten to all of the other spots. Now, you just want to knock off whatever doesn't want to stick. And you might want to redo this again if you find that there's bare spots. For example, like right here. That again. And good to go. You can touch it up as you want later. You can add more flock. You can glue pieces back together. Personally, I typically leave them the way they are. They get bumped around on the table. They get knocked around. Fixing them is not going to help. They're going to get messed up. Now, you will notice that sometimes the flock gets on the trunk up underneath here. So I'll just take a paintbrush and knock that off. Or you can wait until the glue's dried and then take like a toothbrush and brush it off. Or you can just not worry about it since it's hidden way up in there, but I tend to remove it. And that is it. You are done. That tree is ready to go. There are options you can do to this. You can put glue on the base and flock it. I've done one like that here. I used a bark flock here, which is just I got a huge bag of bark from a DIY store or a home improvement store, and for like $3, and cut some of it into little chunks. I think I used a coffee grinder on some of it, and it comes out looking like this. You could also put greenery if you want, but I found that most of the times when you have a big tree like that, there's not a lot of greenery under because of the shade. You could sprinkle a lighter flock lightly on top to give it the impression that that's where the sun's hitting, that's where the brightest leaves are. You can make this in fantasy colors. You could have a purple trunk and a pink top, or whatever you want to do. There's 100 different options, but that's it. So last week we had the trunk, this week we had the foliage, and your tree is ready to go. You can put that on your table, and that's it. Alright, we're done. This one's quick and simple. Stick around if you'd like. There will be a little bit of a few close-up shots of these two trees and maybe a third one after the bump. But that's essentially it. Thanks for coming to Campaign Terrain. I love you. Keep up with us on social media, and I will catch you next week. Thanks for coming. Stick around after the bump, though, for some beauty shots. Oh, for those who don't know, I forgot to show how the flock catcher works. It's just 2 sheets of, in my case, foam core, but you could use just card. You could use wood, whatever, and they're just taped together in a way that will allow them to hinge, and then you can recapture all of your flock, except for the part where I accidentally glued it to the board, but that's neither here nor there. All right. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. Tried to keep it a little shorter and simpler this week. So, now we've got our trees ready to go. Put them on the game. Move our figures in and out of them. Line of sight coverage. A little bit of blockage. Maybe even lead to the plot if somebody climbs up or there's a certain kind of tree they have to go find the fruit from. Whatever you need it for. Trees are ready to go. Ready to put on the table. Hope you've enjoyed it. As ever, I've been your host, That Guy Cross. I thank you for coming to Campaign Terrain. I love you. Make sure to follow us on social media. There's going to be links in various different places. And stick around for just a few more seconds, and I got a couple little video snippets of these. We'll see you next time.